This is mine and Alfie's little tribute to Santa Claus. We're going to make a Santa Claus cushion. Could be a snowman, or it could be a reindeer, or it could be a gorgeous little dog. But we've chosen Santa Claus. I've sewn all of the pieces on, so if you do have kids it should be a little bit safer for them to play with, because they will want to snuggle into Santa Claus, of course. So the first thing we need to do is to choose a cushion. I've gone for a smaller one this time. And I've cut my... it's got deliveries to make. I've cut my fabric around about 3 inches bigger than my cushion in the square. And then what I've done is drawn around the outline of the cushion itself, because I'm going to stitch the cushion cover together from the outside. I'm not going to turn it inside out. So that's just drawn around in a black line. Then I'll take my top fabric, so I'm going to put Santa's face on this before I sew it all together. So put the other piece to one side. Now then, for his face, I've cut out a triangle of fabric, which is around about the size of a quarter of the size of my square. My square's about 2 or 3 inches in from the edge. And I am going to sew that on, but I'm going to give it a little spray of stick and spray first of all, so it doesn't wrinkle when I sew around the edge. So that just goes into the corner here. Then I'm going to choose a zigzag stitch, or you could use any of your stitches, a decorative stitch even, and just sew around all 3 sides. And granted, you won't see the bottom side of this because the semicircle is going to be his chin. Side. That's it. Now then, I'm going to sit his nose in the centre next. So I've cut out a circle of fabric. This measures about 5 inches across, and all I've done is take a double layer of thread and a large needle, and I've done a very loose running stitch all around the edge. And when I get back to the beginning, I'm just going to draw that up like so. And before I finish it off, I'm just going to put a little bit of wadding in the middle, so he's got a nice big fat red cold nose. So push all of that inside. And then draw it up so you don't see any of the stuffing. And when it's drawn up into the circle, I'm just going to stitch it over the back, like so, to stop that opening up. And then that's going to go right into the middle of my face, like so. And I'm going to hand sew that in place. If you wanted to just be doubly sure that it stays there, you could put a little bit of glue behind it. I wouldn't just leave it as the glue though, I would stitch that because it makes it more secure, just in case little fingers do come along and want to pull at Santa's nose. You never know. So that'll do for me for now, so I'll just tie that off on the back. And whatever you do on the back, you're not going to see it because that'll be on the inside of your cushion cover. That'll do. So there's his nose. Next thing I need to do is are his eyes. So what I've taken is I've got some beige fabric, and it's literally a circle, and I've cut across the centre of the circle with my pinking shears, so it's a little bit like eyelashes. And that's going to be his eyelids. And then for his eyes, I've cut an oval shape and then straight across the centre, but I've cut it round a little bit. Finished his deliveries now. cut it round a little bit so he's got a smiley face, and I've sewn a button on because that's going to be his actual eye. So I'll place those on first before I sew, so that I know that they're in the right place. And just to show you, playing with expressions is quite funny, because if you lift his eyelids right up here, he's a very surprised Santa. If you were to place them pointing downwards into the centre, now he's a very cross Santa. But if you just put them on the top of the eyelid, one either side, it makes him a little bit more of a friendly Santa. So one's going to be a friendly Santa. So I'm just going to, again, spray in place with my stick and stay so things don't move around. Under the eyelids. And then I'm going to sew the whole lot together in one go on my sewing machine. Now I'm going to stitch around in red again. If you wanted the stitches to be invisible, then obviously you stitch in the same colour. But I'm just going to go around the outline of the eyes just with a straight stitch this time, which is number 1 on my machine. I'll take it quite slowly because we're going round in a circle. Across the bottom of the eyelid, and then we'll go across the eye itself in just a second. So those are his eyes sewn on. I mean, if you've got a little bit more time, patience or imagination, you could put some stuffing or some wadding behind his eyes and make them stand out a little bit more. You may need to hand sew them on then. So next step, we're going to do his beard and his moustache, but I just want to give him a little bit of a flush before I put his moustache on. So I've just got an ink pad in pink, you could choose red, and I'm just going to give him some nice rosy cheeks. And it's a good idea to do this afterwards because you can see exactly where you're going with it then. Like so. Okay, so beard next, and I've taken a strip of white felt, which is obviously long enough to go around his chin, and I'm going to snip into it, not all the way through, but to make like a fringe. So all of these snips are around about 1/4 of an inch apart. They don't have to be perfect, and it's probably better if they're not, really. And go all the way across. And I'm going to sew that around the bottom of his chin, and we'll do similar for around the top of his hat as well in just a second. Oh, another went through. Nearly there. Then I'm just going to pin that around his chin and sew with the zigzag thing again, I think. There. So just underneath his chin, this is saying you won't see the bottom stitches on his chin, and pin it at the end. Keeping that semicircle and covering up the stitches that were underneath there as well. I don't want those to show through. Onto the side, and then I'll just cut off his extra little bit of beard there and sew it on. Try and keep that nice and flat, and again, if it helps, you can give that a bit of a spray or use some glue that you can sew through, is important. so you don't gunk up your sewing machine with glue. Just to the edge and snip that off. So it's starting to actually look like Santa Claus now. Oh, come here. Take the pins out and then we'll do his moustache. For the moustache, I'm going to take a piece of white felt again, fold it in half, and about halfway down I'm just going to cut a big semicircle, and then from the point of the semicircle just another one on the inside, but I'm not going to snip all the way across like that. So it looks like a big eyebrow, but when you open it up it's joined together. So there's his moustache, and to give it a little bit of a furry feeling I'm going to snip into it just like I did with the beard. Like that. And then I'm going to hand sew this on, but to give it some dimension I'll pin it underneath his nose, then on the edge of the moustache I'm going to bring it in a little bit so it gives it a shape, so it stands away from his face, and then do the same on the other side like that. Then I'm just going to take some white thread so you don't see it this time, and I'm going to put some little tacking stitches just on those 3 points to keep it in place. There. And he's finished. So that's another Christmas present taken care of, and something that's very affordable and a little bit fun for the kids as well. So now he's taking on his Santa appearance. I need to make the hat next. So I've cut 2 triangles of felt which kind of fit across the corner of the cushion. I'm going to just quickly stick and spray those together like that. And then sew all around the edge of the triangle. It doesn't need to be open like a proper hat would be. So I'm going to use a straight stitch. You could use one of your decorative stitches, or even in a different colour if you like. You won't see across the bottom of the hat, however, because it's going to have a fringe around it. And a pom-pom on the top. Going to sit across the top of his head here, and I'm only going to sew across this section because I want his hat to turn down with the pom-pom on when I've finished. So I'll just pop a couple of pins in that, and then again just straight stitch across. You won't see this area. You won't see that area because I'm going to put another fringe just like I made with his beard, and that's going to go across the top of here just to finish off the hat. Like that. And I'll do a zigzag stitch again because you will see this one. Just try and keep that nice and flat so there's no puckers in it. So he's kind of looking finished now. His fringe is on. I've sewn a couple of buttons on for a jacket. I'm just going to make the pom-pom for his hat. And I've done that by, again, cutting a piece of white felt in a fringe, but I've done it on both sides. I actually folded it in half and cut through both pieces together. Then I'm going to roll it up. Nice and tight. Actually, just to secure that a little bit, I'm going to put some fabric glue in dots, just on a few places, just so it doesn't come unravelled. I think that's big enough actually. So I'll cut the end of that off. There. Then I'm going to just sew over the side bit by hand to keep that together. So it looks like a bit of a tube at the moment, but when you spread all of this out it turns into a ball. And I'm going to take my needle from the side and come straight out through the end, fold over my Santa hat, and that's going to go straight through all of those layers of felt. And I'll just do a few stitches there to hold that in place, and I'm going to put a blob of glue just underneath those stitches to make it nice and secure. I've got a feeling my great niece is going to be playing with this at Christmas time, and she's only 1, so I want to make sure that none of the bits come off. And obviously with felt it will come apart if she pulls it hard enough. So I have to keep an eye on that. So that's that. And there's my blob of glue. Where would we be without it? Just to hold it right on top of where I've just sewn to hold the stitches in place. There. Now normally you'd let all of your gluey bits dry, but for speed's sake I need to sew my 2 pieces together. So remember I marked out right at the start a square which was the size of my cushion, and now I'm going to top stitch the 2 pieces all the way around, well 3 sides round to be honest, using a long straight stitch. So I'm just going to be careful when I go around the face because I don't want to spoil what I've done there already. I'm going to move his hat out of the way a little bit and just go as far as I can underneath there. And then pick that up from the other side, just so I'm not sewing actually into his hat. And if there are any areas like that when you turn it or when you put the cushion in there's a bit of a gap, because I think there will be around about ½ an inch there, I can always just put a few hand stitches in there. So I'll go as far as I can to the hat again. And lift that up. Carry on. Might be alright actually. Underneath from this side. I can sew straight across his eyelid because that's under the fringe and you won't see that. So that's 2 sides. Still following that line that I drew all the way down to the final side. Cushion pad inside, and it should be quite tight and snug, which I like in a cushion, particularly when it's a Santa cushion because it gives him a nice fat belly. Make sure my points of my cushion go into the points of the cushion cover. Then this is going to be a little bit tricky because I need to machine sew the final side while the cushion's inside it. So make sure the cushion's out of the way of the stitch line. back across the line that I drew, keeping it nice and square, making sure I don't catch that cushion. And careful with felt as well, it can tend to stretch a little bit, so don't push it and pull it too much, otherwise you can distort the shape. Cushion it away. Your ink line as well that we drew right at the beginning, if you draw that in ink that disappears, then you won't see the line if you're not quite straight with your sewing machine. And it's nearly finished. All I'm going to do now, just like with the beard and with the fringe on the hat, I'm going to snip all around the edge of the cushion. I'm going to cut the corner off, because I think that looks better, and then just cutting that, obviously not through the stitch line, so be careful with this one, and I'm going to take that all around the edge.